yeah, talking about you're basically justifying dualism in a sound sense, because when you refer to rationality and really virtue is what you're alluding to, you're talking about the soul, right? And this is classical, this perennial philosophy that the soul exists, right? Even mentis in Latin, we got mentality that is originally of of a immaterial, that's an immaterial, a notion that refers to immateriality, or suhe from psychology. Psychology was originally philosophy, that is the immaterial reality. So without a doubt, classically speaking, and even in a sense, there's certain immediacy here. Like, yes, we do not immediately perceive what is not physical. It does seem, because we only we passively perceive the senses. We immediately perceive the object of sense, and since they're invisible, they can't be, by definition, the object of sense. So we can argue for them. But in a sense, there's certain immediacy, because there's a lack of something. Like, for example, as you alluded to, death. So the person's not there, right? I don't talk to Johnny's corpse. And Johnny, and this reductionist, this material reduction is so absurd, to say that Johnny is just, the conjoined biological functions in the body, the flowing of the blood, the beating of the heart, the multiplication of cells, what have you. That is Johnny. It's so absurd, and it's so insulting. And we do not even believe that. A child himself realizes Johnny is gone, right? Johnny is not there, right, in death. So there's certain something immediately, right, there to be known. What was interesting with talking with what you're talking about, using logic, the postmoderns, the contemporary philosophers, like Foucault said in his he had another work, I think it's called Madness and Civilization. Yeah, he said, I have the quote right here. The ultimate language of madness is that of reason. It's just, and we talked about before how one extreme responds to another. This is the Hegelian dialect, right? Where you have the synthesis, antithesis. I'm sorry, thesis, antithesis, and then synthesis. So really, history is a whole bunch of kind of contradictions offsetting each other, until something new comes out, and then that has a contradiction, and then so on and so forth. So really, because rationality has been so triumphant, it has been it is equated with tyrannical oppression, and it has culminated into the two world wars. I'm not promoting this. I mean, I'm just stating this matter of factly. This is what the contemporary philosophers believe, that being reasonable simply veils, right? Or what's underlying it is tyrannical oppression. Remember, because we have to see everything through the lens of power with the contemporary philosophers. So what do? We have to get away from that oppression by getting away from reason. So your arguments are all good. And that's the salvation, again, of man. We have to go back to the classical arguments. The problem with them is that they're totally deconstructionist. There was a deconstructionist philosopher, was it 14? No, Derrida. Uh, Deconstruction, destroy, no, not construct. So uh, it's a denial of the past, without affirming anything positive. It's a denial of reason. It's an irrationality, and hence we turn to the body. We turn to the bodily desires. So they would say, "Don't come with me." So they would say, "Nego majorem," in Latin. I deny the major. I deny the in English you say the well the first they deny the premise ultimately. They deny the premise of your arguments. I argued one time with a postmodernist, and he would argue against me. Um, he would argue with me against the principle of non-contradiction, which is the fundamental principle of logic. Two things cannot coexist, or well, no, two contradictions cannot be. One thing cannot be and not be at the same time in the same sense. I cannot exist and not exist at the same time in the same sense. So he was arguing against that. So I was like, how can you, well, as Aristotle said, I mean, this is an inherent contradiction. To philosophize, to deny philosophy, you have to philosophize. To be an anti-philosopher, you have to be a philosopher. So it's an inherent contradiction. But you see how deep to the how deep seated this is. And another thing you allude to, this is interesting, it seems to be because really the last level of sin, of disorder, is its justification, especially its rational justification. So they rationally justify irrationality, the ultimate contradiction, right? This is really the sin against, we can say this, the philosophical sin against the Holy Spirit, right? Where you cannot be saved, right? Philosophically, because you have denied yourself so fundamentally. So and it goes to the point where Foucault, he humanizes any type of behavior, especially sexual deviant behavior. He wrote another work, I see right here. Yeah, the history of sexuality, right? He argues that the demonization of the sexual other, reveals the petty tyrannical insecurity of the sexual majority. So also because Foucault is a Marxist, he passes on that the Hegel, again based on the Hegelian dialect of the oppressor and oppressed, he passes that from the economic realm to the sexual realm. Really, that sex and the body too, more fundamentally, the body has been oppressed by the soul. It's the soul. The souls are like the capitalists, and the bodies are, the poor working class. And now we need to reverse those roles where the body comes up top and really imposes on the soul, which he wouldn't even believe existed. And it imposes its desires. And again, as a type of redemption for man. This is the minority that needs to rebel, needs to revolutionize violently. And hence we have the sexual revolution. And hence we have this anti-Western, anti-Christian uh, mentality so prevalent today. Right? It's very much founded on Foucault. And yeah, I don't know if you want to say some closing remarks, we can end it here.
Yeah, there's some fascinating points, Professor. I think we could perhaps give a slight stab towards the initial kind of point of trying to reconcile the fact that whereas uh, corporal monism has too many issues to be uh, a realistic option as to truth, as to how things work. Also, the classical dualism of mind and body also has innumerable issues. Again, that I have a mind that is different than the body. So, what could be said on this account? Perhaps one suggestion would be that, first of all, we take any and all content of any sort, we place it on the same epistemic footing. We don't give anything priority. Any kind of content, again, be it that we call it experience or we call it reality or we call it thought or we call it motion, physical motion, whatever it might be, we place it on the same footing of knowledge to ourselves. And then we simply consider the facts on the ground as to how an individual develops. And the facts on the ground seems to reveal that we begin life in a way such that can be described as that of a creature, as a baby. There's a reason to think that a baby certainly can feel heat and cold and hunger and thirst and all of that, but there's yet no self, as later on may come about. No, if barring certain kind of issues that unfortunately may take somebody out of the race, and hopefully the baby becomes a toddler and the toddler becomes a kid and a preteen and a teen. And the proper process of development is, and also to mention, you mentioned that so-called Hegelian dialectic, which I think philosopher Fichte, however you would pronounce it, Johann Fichte actually originated it, but it is typically associated with Hegelianism. Here, that dialectic could be something like that. Here's myself, whatever it is. I'm a little 5-year-old kid, and I like blocks. And here's mommy, here's daddy. Hopefully, this and that. And there's the non-self. There's the bigger kid on the playground. There's the toy that I don't have. There's the idea that I don't understand. There's the place that I haven't been to. So then we take it and we assimilate it to ourself. We make it a part of ourself. Just like the body, in order to make use of food, it has to convert it. A big issue, medical issues, that people can't properly use nutrients because the nutrients remain themselves. They retain their identity, and the body cannot convert them and use them for its own purposes. So I could have a lot of vitamin C, B, D, but it's pointless if my body can't convert it. So I can be exposed to all kinds of experiences, but unless I can turn that material into myself, so to say, then it's pointless. That's why you can take a dog all over the world and take it to the best art galleries and expose it to every kind of experience, but the dog will remain a dog because there's no latent potentiality to grow as a principle of individuality. But by the way of our species, there is obviously that potentiality. Again, as a matter of fact, without any speculation, there is that potentiality. I do have a principle of individuality, and if I take that which is at present my not self, and I conform myself to it, right? With food, I have to conform the food to myself. The food has to die for me to live. For me to live, there's a cow. Well, I have to, unfortunately, goodbye cow and welcome burger or steak or whatever it might be. Goodbye plant if I'm a vegetarian, and welcome the plant burger or the broccoli or whatnot. With ideas and with truth, I have to die in relation to the ideas and the truth. Here's the truth that I don't like. I have to assimilate it. I have to conform myself, assimilate myself to it. Right. So if we go through that process correctly, then we, again, as a matter of fact, without any speculation, we expand as an individual. We go from being a tiny little point of selfishness and self-seeking and self-centeredness to a whole world, a whole reality, to so say, within which the phenomena appear, and yet, right, not at the exclusion of the reality of the phenomena. Right? So we're not going to either take some kind of strange monistic mentalism. Oh, here's just my mind. We don't know. If there's only mind, then the word mind has no meaning. If there's only matter, the word matter has no meaning. For all intents and purposes, we can divide our experience and say by the word matter, we mean something, for example, to which my hand will not reach, something that my thoughts do not modify, right? I have a thought of Mount Everest. So I can visualize Mount Everest, and then I can turn it into gold in my mind or make it gold colored, but it will not change my potential experiences of that which I consider to be the real Mount Everest. So we can certainly make that division on a level, right? But ultimately, as was mentioned, we say everything we take on the same epistemic footing. We don't know what it is in any ultimate way. We can't define it outside of itself or take something outside of experience or reality to define experience or reality, but we can clearly see that there are principles of individuality, what we call selves, and we can make some progress towards clarifying what it takes to be happy and healthy selves, which includes, I think, some of the elements perhaps mentioned, and obviously many others, but certainly it does not include becoming a slave, a servant to the corporal impulses. It does not include denying the corporal impulses and going the other route of trying to enfeeble myself physically and consequently mentally. No, I want to have the strongest and healthiest body that I can, so as to have the strongest and healthiest mind that I can, and then I want to use that mind to pursue the truth, to do good, to do right, and consequently grow as an individual. And whatever my destiny is, it is, right? And hopefully we'll find out.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, you're definitely anti-contemporary philosopher, uh, right? Or philosophy you're talking about there, because really the denial of self is rooted in modern philosophy, and it's very much exists in like extreme existentialism, which is part of contemporary philosopher from Sartre for sure. But yeah, you're right. I mean, this awareness of self, this awareness of individuality, this awareness of personhood, which cannot be communicated, right? I can communicate my human nature, but not my individualized human nature, which is individualized by my personhood. So I cannot, I cannot communicate Raphaelness, right? Yes, humanity I can, but this individualized human, which is Raphael, cannot be communicated. So much so in Catholic doctrine, in the Trinity, we teach that they share one nature, but they're distinct by the person. So they have individuation through their personality. So that the Father cannot give fatherhood to the Son, the Son cannot give sonship back to the Father or give sonship to the Holy Spirit. So they are unique persons, but they share everything except for that personality, which makes them, right, this individual. And and we do have an immediate internal awareness, and this is interesting because you know, we never really feel disembodied. Like there's an internal self-awareness of our body. So even though, external perceptions flow, they come and go, really the inner sensory flow, you can say, in our bodies is not even controlled by us. Right? There's something there that I have this inner self-awareness that seems to go beyond any type of or merely reducing it to a simple, biological explanation. There's something there, and my individuation, my individuality, what makes me an individual, something that it cannot be repeated, something incommunicable, is also something that would seem to be, that would seem to refer to an immaterial reality. Um, even though no two physical things are alike, fair enough. But the human person is so complex and so individualized in many, just in many small factors, in many, character traits and different temperaments, that it seemed that it would have to be based, really eradicated in an immaterial element as the soul. So yeah, it's really, um, again, the problem is you can seemingly reduce everything to the body, but it's really, I like to be consequentialist. I mean, the consequences of that, I think that really helps in philosophy to be consequentialist, saying, well, which is it's kind of saying, I forget the name of the fallacy. It's a fallacy where you say you take the opponent's argument as true, and you say if your argument was true, then I forget what it's called. Um, but you take the opponent's argument as true, and you say if you were right, then this, and this, and this. So really, from the consequences, you can know that it's false, right? The most true consequences, the best consequences, and the consequences that point to the good really are the ones in their root, that the reasons are those are the ones that. So, but anyway, yeah, if you want to end it here, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, sure. No, good points, Professor. Yeah, I think that is a practical tool. See if there's a discrepancy between what a person says and how their life is. Right. So let's say no prominent speaker immediately comes to mind that says there's no such thing as an individual. There's just each moment, right? Okay, you have kids, so each moment that you see your kid, don't acknowledge that this is your kid. That was your kid a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. That is somewhere in their given point of development as it concerns education and character. This is just moment to moment, right? So, it's a new every moment. It's a new kid. And you can give them a new name every moment. You can start teaching them random words from random languages. It really doesn't matter, right? It's just a given moment. So we see that that would be absolutely criminal. Obviously, we assume that there is a single principle of individuality that can be affected by what you teach the kid and how you treat the kid and so forth. You were my kid yesterday. You're my kid today, and hopefully you'll be my kid tomorrow. You're in first grade. You're not going to all of a sudden become a senior in high school mentally, emotionally, and maturity wise overnight. You can have some jumps a little bit, but not like that. Right? Just like physically, I have to contend with my body, take myself where I'm at physically and hit the gym and get in shape and build some muscle and lose some fat. I can't just deny the individuality of my body. I can't just say, oh, my body, your body, it's all the same. All the bodies are the same. I don't really have a body. Do I really have a body? No, I do have a body and I should take care of it and I should work out and I should eat healthy. So if I take some of these devious steps to deny my personhood and deny my individuality, because for many reasons, right? If I never work out, and there's a lot of stuff here that gravity can hold on to, I probably don't want to take off my shirt. I don't want to acknowledge my body, right? If I have all kinds of health issues, I don't want blood works necessarily. So I don't acknowledge myself. I live a degenerate lifestyle, or I just ignore myself, and there's all kinds of disorder and all kinds of issues that come up. I don't want to acknowledge myself, so I deny myself. I'm nothing more than my brain, or an epiphenomenon of my brain, I don't exist at all. It's just a given moment, all this nonsense. And instead, I do acknowledge my individuality. It exists to some extent, and it has some continuity to some extent. I have to deal with myself as much as necessary. The analogy, physically something hurts, deal with it until it doesn't hurt, and I don't think about it. Something hurts mentally, emotionally. I have given issues, deal with those issues until I don't think about it. And that's the difference also between so-called self-help and a truly kind of a devout human life, which is focused on self-sacrifice and moving towards the good. It's not about me making myself perfect so I can think, oh, I'm so perfect and I'm so psychologically enlightened, this and that. It's about taking care of my inner exigencies so that I can turn myself to something higher than myself. I'm constantly stressed and anxious, ask myself why, try to take care of that. A limb is healthy, I'm not thinking about it. I'm healthy as a self, I'm not thinking about myself. Not because I deny myself or ignore myself, but because I align myself with truth. And therefore, I don't need to think about myself. So, again, in summary, I think, again, take our individuality seriously, whatever the speculation here might be. People have been speculating about the body and the mind and the relation between the two and all of that for millennia. And we can't expect that, there's going to be a perfect solution, and we can't wait around for there to be a perfect solution. We can't wait. Okay, first of all, I have to know all of this, and then I'm going to work on myself. Start from the bottom where I'm at and climb up, not from the top down, from the bottom up. Take myself as I am and work myself out properly and become what it is that I'm able to be, regardless of how that would be classified philosophically.